Here we go. It's time to do it once again. Another Sunday edition of the Sports Rush. I am Brett Rump, and while you're tuning in, I do hope you're also clicking the subscribe button and make sure you like and share the channel. Big show today. We've got to talk about the Final Four. The championship game is set. The Women's National Championship has been decided in very convincing fashion. And we've got some baseball to talk about because, yes, one of Fort Wayne's favorite summertime pastimes is now upon us. And it's not exactly going to be summertime weather for the opener for the Fort Wayne TinCaps coming up on Tuesday, but they'll be in town all week. And, of course, Midwest weather in the spring. You're going to have days in the 40s, days in the 70s. Pick and choose which days you decide to get a ticket and come to TinCaps baseball. If you bundle up, maybe you can sit through a colder game. If you like it to be a little warmer before you buy a ticket, well, you don't have to wait very long because the weather could warm up a little bit later in the week. So we've got a lot to talk about. We'll talk a little bit about the TinCaps because they had, they got shellacked pretty good up in Great Lakes. But it's going to be a fun show. I don't know how long we're going to go today because of it being a holiday, and happy Easter to everyone. I don't know that we're going to be able to make it all the way to 7 o'clock, and we're not going to just stretch out the show because we want to stretch out the show. We're going to give you the content we've got prepared, and we're going to then wrap up the show and give you a little bit of your holiday evening to enjoy before heading back to work tomorrow for so many of you. By the way, I thought it's fascinating. College basketball, of course, has been, under the scrutiny of pretty much everybody. And it's not just college basketball. It's college basketball, it's college football, it's college sports because of the NIL and the changing landscape and then the open transfers. Everything has affected what we once knew as our traditional college sports landscape. And finally, we have someone taking leadership to try to do something to rein in controls of what seems to be a runaway freight train. And President Trump tried to sign an executive order. Got to talk about that a little bit because that could definitely change the path moving forward of college athletics as a whole, not only on the basketball side, but on the football side. He's talking about limits. He wants limits to the amount of money that can be paid out to athletes. He wants to limit transfers to only one during a 5-year period, and your maximum 5-year eligibility rule, which means you've got 4 years of eligibility, but you have to use them within a 5-year period. And I don't think he's off track. I think logistically, there's a couple of things that are going to be very difficult to implement, and there are probably going to have to be some variations. For instance, the one transfer. What if somebody takes transfer as a sophomore and then they get there in the very first year, the coach is fired or leaves? Now you've got to decide, do you go with the coach? And if you only have one transfer, you have no choice. You're a lame duck, and I don't think the incoming coach wants that situation. They don't want players that are forced to play for them and possibly a different system. And so I do think they've got to allow a transfer in those situations. But overall, I kind of like that at least someone at a level of power is trying to take charge and put some limits and some boundaries on what has become a, just out of control system. I mean, when you're paying a basketball roster almost $20 million, things are getting out of control. And that's like basically putting an all NBA rookie team together and competing in college basketball. And so I think a lot of this stuff is just common sense. You've got to put the limits to it. And President Trump trying to get that process started, and the executive order, which of course has to then go to Congress. And I don't know all of the political doings of what exactly has to happen for it to be a law, but I know it has to be more than just an executive order. So I think at least in this process, the ball has been kind of thrown out there into the playing surface, and we'll see where it goes from here. Hey, don't forget, while you're connected, you can always comment with us. We would love to get your comments if you've got anything you'd like to say or add. Ryan is already weighing in. Justin is weighing in. TinCaps split the doubleheader, yes. But when they lost, they decided to lose really darn good. Things just got away from them in that second game. A couple of home runs. I think it was, the third inning? And from there on, just no contest. But let's see. Ryan weighing in, and I'll try to do this on my own because I don't have Adam this week. Ryan saying, Iron Eagle, much better than Jim Nantz. Brings more energy and passion. I've always been a fan of Jim Nantz, but I'm also a fan of Iron Eagle. So I like both of them. And yeah, they do have a little bit of a different style. And Iron Eagle probably is a little more animated, but I always thought Jim Nantz did a fine job. I thought well prepared, handled the responsibility of play-by-play really well. We know in TV, play-by-play doesn't necessarily carry the broadcast. That's generally the responsibility of the analyst. I noticed that of the two they've got right now with, Grant Hill and Bill Raftery, that Bill Raftery is the one that's pretty much controlling the show. I mean, he's talking much more, but I've not had issues and haven't seen a lot of issues with people complaining about the broadcast or the broadcasters. And that's usually a sign you're doing a pretty decent job, because in today's day and age of social media, if you're not, you're going to hear about it. And I haven't seen a whole lot of negative put out there on social media. Ryan also saying Big Ten now has titles in football and women's basketball. Michigan can do their part in winning Big Ten title in men's basketball. Big Ten football, I think, has taken over as the number one football team in the country. I mean, when you look at Michigan, Ohio State, Indiana, and you look at the teams that have won national championships, I think it's hard to argue that perhaps the best conference in the country is no longer the SEC. Now, when you look at some sports, baseball being among them, the SEC probably the edge over the other conferences, but certainly in football and basketball, right now the Big Ten, because I wasn't sure this was a good year for Big Ten basketball, and it turned out that the Big Ten fared pretty well, non-conference, and fared pretty well in this tournament, getting two teams to the Final Four, and then even getting Iowa, which was not a great Big Ten team, getting them into the Sweet 16. So, and you had the Elite Eight. You had Nebraska even in the Sweet 16. So they got quite a few teams that made it. Of course, Purdue, I'm not going to leave you Purdue fans out, made it into the Sweet 16. What else do we have coming in? TinCaps did look good in game one. Solid game, 7-inning contest. And the TinCaps won game one 4-1 before losing 16-1 in the second game? I kind of half tuned out, but I think it was 16-1 they lost the second game. But ultimately, it's a split on the road, and you'll take that. And now they come home for their home opener on Tuesday night, and hopefully the fans will come out and brave some 40-some degree temperatures. And, of course, that 60-degree guarantee, I'm not saying if you buy a ticket you can get 2 for 1, but remember, the 60-degree guarantee means if it's not 60 degrees, then you get a ticket to a future April game to redeem. So might be a 2 for 1 deal. All right, so last night was the Final Four on the men's side. And the UConn Huskies defeated Illinois. The Michigan Wolverines defeat Arizona. I was calling UConn to win. And if you followed a couple of the short videos I've done this week, you know that I was kind of trying to figure out why it seemed overwhelmingly that people were liking Illinois in this one. Yes, they were going to have the fan base, but the fans don't shoot it. They don't defend it. They don't rebound it. And so I thought, yes, a big fan base and a big building. It's going to sound really nice, but UConn's been there, done that, and I don't think the home court is a huge difference when it's still a neutral court. And so I would say maybe worth a point, point and a half, playing it with short travel. But it's not like UConn isn't used to these types of trips to go play in Final Fours. And I thought the experience of playing in a Final Four was going to be bigger than the home court advantage. I thought that UConn matched up very well against Illinois. And quite honestly, I made money on both sides of the bet. I took UConn, took the points, and I also took the under because I thought it would be a defensive type game. And ended up with a 71-62 game, 133 points, and the over-under was 139.5, which I thought was kind of high. So nice day, nice night for me. I stayed away from Michigan, Arizona, because that was one of those games with those two teams that if a mismatch happened and some kind of team got on a run, it could be a 20, 25-point game real quick. Kind of like what happened in the women's game today. And the reason being, both teams are really capable of putting up big points in bunches. They've got a lot of different players that could get hot. It just so happened last night it was Michigan that controlled the play, that made the points, and also did exactly what you had to do against Arizona, which was to take away their big advantage in size. And certainly that Arizona did not have the size against Michigan. And then the fact that Michigan is able to switch everything, which I think is going to come into play. We'll talk a little more about this matchup with Michigan and UConn, but I think it's going to come into play, the way Michigan defends and the type of lineup that Michigan puts on the floor. But in yesterday's game, just really, it was two dominant games, but Illinois did make a late run to kind of make it interesting. Would they get it to within 4 points? I don't think they ever got it to a single possession, but I think they did get it down to 4. But then UConn was able to extend it over the final couple of minutes and win the game by 9. But UConn took control of this game early, and a lot of that was because of Braylon Mullins playing in front of his hometown crowd. He hit a couple of big threes early that kind of set the tone for UConn, gave them some confidence. UConn played well. They deserved to beat Illinois. And so now Dan Hurley once again advances into a national championship game. Michigan, Arizona, I tell you, that busted a lot of brackets because just looking at our little group with the Sports Rush, there's a lot of you that had Arizona as your national champion. Now, there's a handful that had Michigan, but Arizona, Michigan, two of the popular choices. And so, it was either going to be play for the championship and win the bracket challenge or pretty much be out of it if Arizona did not win. And Michigan, there's a reason they started the season back in November beating teams by 40 points a game. Now, that was before you could put together a more advanced scout and really get a read on what Michigan was doing offensively and defensively. But when you just rolled the ball out there and tried to guess on the scout, Michigan was whooping your butt by 40 points. I mean, and some good teams that they were beating by 40 points. And, that's where you start when you just look at the talent that Michigan has. Now you add into that the coaching of Dusty May, getting a chance to play for a national championship in his home state where he went to high school not far away in Indiana. Great storylines in this national championship game because you also have Braylon Mullins, the freshman that got away. Indiana fans think that he should be at IU, but he's going to be playing for a national title here in Indiana his freshman year at UConn. Great storylines for the national championship game. But let's talk about this matchup. And first of all, one thing that Michigan does defensively, they play man-to-man, and they switch. And I think that's going to cause a problem for UConn because UConn uses the screen to create mismatches, but Michigan, it's very hard to get a mismatch because they don't mind switching. They're so versatile defensively with guys 6'5", 6'9". I mean, the only one that's shorter than the other guys on the floor is Cadeau, and the only one that's really taller than everybody else is Mara. I mean, everybody else, Shutter is still, what, 6'9", 6'10", 6'9"? But they put a lot of guys out there, 6'9", 6'8", 6'6", 6'5", a lot of guys in that range, and they switch everything. Well, a lot of UConn's offense is based on the switch and the attack, trying to get you to switch, trying to get you to go below a screen, running the stagger screens, trying to get a shooter open. But if you're switching everything, all of the screen game, I don't want to say it's neutralized because you can still have effective screens even when a team is switching. But it's a lot harder to get the end result that you're looking for more consistently. And so I think that gives an advantage to Michigan because I think it takes away one of the weapons that UConn uses to create offense. The other thing that UConn does is they like to play inside out from the post. In other words, feed the post, and then they cut and screen away from the post so they can get kick out threes. And again, switching the perimeter, but also being able to play Reed one-on-one down in that block when Reed is going to have to go up against a guy that's 4 inches taller in Mara. I think that's going to create a problem for UConn. I don't see anything that UConn does that takes away anything that Michigan does well. But I do see things that Michigan does that will take away some of the best things that UConn can bring to the table. Therefore, I like Michigan without question in this game. I don't even think it's going to be close. I think Michigan has a chance to win this going away. I could end up being totally wrong, but I just think all of the matchups lead me to believe that Michigan is the smart choice in the national championship game. They just put together a big lineup, 7'3", 6'9", 6'9", 6'5", and 6'1". Cadeau at 6'1", runs the point, but man, he is really good doing what he does. He can wiggle his way into the paint, which then gets him in the middle of the defense where he can kick out, he can drop it down low. So many different things he can do from that position, and he's able to maneuver his way there. He's able to step back and hit a three-point shot. So even though he's 6'1", he brings some skills to the table. Also, you've got the big man down low, and Mara, as well as he is playing right now, has got to be a key to your scout. And then you've got to figure out what's going on with Lindenberg. Lindenberg? Because, he's dealing with something and he's not 100%, but he has such a matchup problem at 6'9", the ability to drive, the ability to finish through contact, the strength he has at the low block. And so that's going to be a challenge because I don't know who for UConn is going to have that matchup. When you look at UConn starters, they start 6'11", 6'8", 6'6", as the three bigs, quote bigs, and 6'6" is Mullins. So really they're going three guards, one a taller guard, while Michigan is putting 7'3", 6'9", 6'9", and one of the 6'9" is guard / forward, however you want to define him, but the player of the year in the Big Ten. And I don't know who guards him. Certainly Mullins is not going to be able to guard him. So, I just think Michigan Michigan is the one who's going to create all the matchup issues. They're going to be able to take things away from UConn that UConn does to be successful. I tell you, I think this one could really go one direction. I like Michigan. What are your thoughts? You can always comment. Let me see if I got anything I haven't read yet. UConn was better on the boards and inside, made more threes, better defense. I think that's Ryan weighing in on UConn versus Illinois. But yeah, let me know if you've got any comments. Love to hear from you. Comments are open. Also, you can subscribe, you can like, and you can share this channel. We appreciate everybody who does tune in on our Sunday night show. We do it live on Sunday and then mini videos during the week as things happen. Once again, this week's going to be kind of unique because we've got TinCaps baseball starts Tuesday night at the ballpark. Once again, I'll be joining Jaden Taylor in the TinCaps television booth and occasionally jumping on to join the Wizard of Moz, Mike Moz, on the radio side. And so occasionally you'll hear me doing the radio for the TinCaps on 1380 The Fan and 100.9 FM. And so I look forward to that. I am a radio guy. Also as a lifetime play-by-play guy, seems like working out of a cage to have to do color every game. So it's nice to be able to get a chance to do some play-by-play with Mike Moz on the radio. Once again, looking to see if you've got any comments on the Final Four. It says total domination both ends from Michigan, the only team to ever score 90-plus in every tournament game. I mean, that's the other thing is we talk about, if you want to talk about their offense, I mean, 5 guys almost every game are going double figures. They've got tremendous balance, unselfishness. They got guys that can hit threes. They got guys that can beat you up around the basket. I mean, there is no, somebody tell me a weakness with this Michigan team, because quite honestly, I haven't found one. They're an above average defensive team. I'm not going to say they're elite, but they're a good defensive team because they have a rim protector. They're able to switch because of the versatility of their players. In other words, they're not going to get beat on a switch because they're either too small, not quick enough, whatever the case may be. I mean, they got 6'9" guys that move like 6'3" guards. They've got 6'5" guys that can muscle up and keep you out of the paint. So they don't mind switching. They do switch voluntarily. They will switch. And a lot of times that's where UConn sets up their offense, trying to create those mismatches with the staggered screens, the catch and shoot. And it's not going to be there against Michigan. I just can't see it. I can't see them getting easy looks because, for one, Mullins is probably going to have to be putting it up over a 6'9" guy. And he's 6'6", which means as a shooter, that's normally an advantage to be a 6'6" guard because you're usually shooting it over a smaller defender. But it's not going to be an advantage against Michigan because their defenders, 6'5", 6'9", 6'9". Those are the guys that are going to be guarding the perimeter. And it's tough to get a shot over a 6'9" guy. So I really, really think Michigan's got a huge advantage in this game. Now, it doesn't mean UConn's not going to win. I'm not, I don't want to discredit UConn, but the stars are aligned, and this Michigan team's a better basketball team. And I'll say that even if UConn wins, I will say Michigan's a better basketball team. They have more depth, more talent. They've had a better year than UConn. But let's just say if this game gets to, 20, 25 points, I don't think it's going to be UConn. It's going to be the maize and blue that are rolling. What do we end up with a line for this? I never looked at what the line actually was. 4.5, 5.5, 6.5. I would not be surprised. I would have guessed 5.5, but not sure. I'll try to look, see if I can find it quickly. Let's see. The Monday night game. It has Michigan 6.5. That's what I would have guessed. 5.5, maybe 6.5. It opened at 7.5. But of course, recency, you come off Michigan having that dominating win against Arizona, and Vegas is prepared that the fans are going to want to jump on Michigan because they're the hot bet right now. And it quickly settled at 6.5. So it's at 6.5 right now from 7.5 where it opened. Over under of 144.5. And Michigan has scored 90 plus every game. I know UConn's a really good defensive team, but even the over under number to me favors Michigan. Because if Michigan scores 80, that only leaves about 64 points to go to UConn. And 80 would be a good defensive job by the Huskies. All right, so with the finals, you've just got UCLA absolutely dominant over South Carolina. And similar matchup, really, in this one as what we'll see in the men's game. Big Ten champion, just one loss on the year. Veteran squad, and they took control early and never let loose. They kept their foot on the gas. They ended up going up by 33 points, I think, at one point, and ended up winning at 79-51 over Don Staley's South Carolina Gamecocks. And so UCLA with Lauren Betts, Kiki Rice, Jaquez, all of that senior class, they win the national championship. And as Ryan was saying earlier, it's another national title for the Big Ten. But that game was today. Tomorrow night, Michigan and UConn. But with these national championships, now it's time for official portaling. Even though we have been seeing for 2 or 3 weeks now, all of the players that are intending to enter the portal, or even perhaps some that said they were intending on staying, they could still end up in the portal. But it's time to go portaling. The women's portal, I guess it would begin at midnight tonight because Monday is officially the first day the portal will be open. And for the women, and for the men, it will open on Tuesday. And so early activity, you'll get a handful of players that are going to decide in the first week or so. But the majority of true activity in the portal is going to come probably 2 to 3 weeks down the line. That's when you have your period of opportunity. Who's going to call? Who really wants you? Is there going to be NIL money involved, and how much, if there is? What will my role be with each team? I've got to do some of my due diligence as a player and look into these teams because these teams have been looking into these players. And then visits. You've got to narrow the field and decide who do you really want to go see. And so it's time for, to me, this is free agency. This is the biggest period of the year for college basketball. Everything you're going to try to do next winter is all based on the success you have in the next 2 to 3 weeks, maybe the next month. because if you don't have the players, you don't have the chess pieces, you can't play chess. And you know, you don't want to get stuck playing a game of checkers next winter because you just didn't get the right mix of players or the right level of talent. You didn't evaluate talent well enough, or you ended up with a group of guys that just didn't have the chemistry, because chemistry goes a long way, especially with so many different teams building completely new rosters. The ones that actually have some chemistry and hang out together and like each other and want to play with each other and for each other, those teams do perform better. And I know coaches are going to great lengths now to try to figure out how to build some bond and cohesiveness with teams very quickly in the process. Get them in June and try to figure out what are some of the activities you can do with their guys that starts that chemistry, starts that relationship building amongst teammates. But it isn't always organic. Sometimes it's difficult and it's got to be forced a little bit. And sometimes that's tough. But the portal will be opening up officially for Division I athletes. Of course, already, you know, you had the Division II, the Division III, the NAIA, those players, the grad transfers, all of them have already been portaling. But it really gets official coming up tomorrow for women, Tuesday for men. And like I said, you'll probably hear more announcements about players going into the portal in the next 5, 6, 7 days. Then you will hear about players that are signing. There will be a few, like I said, the ones that are leaving a situation because they know a year ago they made a mistake. Like, let's say a freshman decided he's going to go for the bigger school and try to shoot for the moon, goes to that bigger school, doesn't get a chance to play, can tell that his future is going to be blocked by incoming transfers out of the transfer portal. He knows it's time to jump ship and maybe go back to who was recruiting him a year ago. That could be a pretty quick process. But a lot of these processes are going to take some time. The Mastodons have one that they have inked so far. And he's a 6'8", 6'9". I saw him listed at both heights in different rosters, but we'll call him 6'8", 235 pounds. Big, solid forward that can play the 4, the 5, can stretch with the three-point shot. He's a pretty good three-point shooter. It might not be the best part of his game. And the guy he's looking to replace and earn the minutes of is Max Nelson. And we all know that Nelson's greatest strength was his three-point shot. But last year, Nelson shot, I think, 36% from three. And so the Dons really can upgrade in three-point shooting. Last year was not a good year for the Dons in three-point shooting. As a team, they've always been top 10, top 15 in the country at three-point percentage, and they were not there last year. And so this is a chance for the Dons to get a couple of shooters, get more consistency, top to bottom on the roster behind the three-point line. And the other thing is and I've talked about this, the Dons have to get bigger, more physical, and it's especially at that 3 position. They need to be able to bring in players that can play the 3. Of course, they're going to need bigs, 5s and 4s, but the 2s and the 3s, because if you look around college basketball right now, even in mid-major basketball, where most of the 2s are 6'3" or 6'4", and most of the 3s are 6'5", 6'6", 6'7", it's hard with 3 guards 6'3" and under. And so CJ Hadnot, he's transferring. He was playing the 3 position. That's a chance for the Dons to go out and get that 6'6", 6'7" guy that maybe he's got a little athleticism, a little bit of body, can help as being a third rebounder, but you also need somebody that knocks down the three-point shot. That's always a criteria for Purdue Fort Wayne, guys that can hit the 3, because the way their offense is set up, driving, attacking the paint, feeding the post. It's paint touches, kickouts. It's working the ball with the extra pass around the perimeter. you need to have multiple guys that can hit at a high percentage from behind the three-point line. And with the Mastodons, if you're a three-point shooter, it's a good place to be. Because number one, you will get open. You won't have to find a way to create your own shot. The Mastodons will create shots for you if you're a three-point shooter. And number two, you'll not only get shots, but you'll get really open shots. I mean, really open shots. And those are the ones the Dons have to knock down at a higher percentage than what they did this past year, because they were really good. They were elite with guys like DeAndre Craig and CJ Hadnot, Mikhail Stevenson. They were elite at attacking into the paint and getting open looks on the outside. They were elite in transition, where they flared to a corner and got a three-point look because they had the guard play that set up those shots, but they didn't shoot them at a high enough percentage. And what I'm saying is, overall for the season, you might be a 40% shooter, but in that 40% or 50% of your shots are very tightly contested. Another 25 or 30% are semi-contested. With the Mastodons, 50% of your three-point looks might be wide open. Barely a hand in your face. Only a player may be running out. And so if you're a guy that shoots it at a high percentage, you can probably increase your percentage significantly coming to the Mastodons. But the Dons will be looking for those 6'6", 6'7" guys. They'll be looking for 6'3", 6'4" guards. Man, it all starts from the inside out, because they've got some talented guards that are going to be coming back, and they need to match that and balance that with some real talented scoring guys at the 3, 4, and 5 position. Losing CJ Hadnot means you've got a three-man spot open, and first thing is upgrade size. Why do you need size? Why is size so important? Because, I know somebody could probably say, the Dons used to win by undersizing against their opponents. What they did was they forced opponents to play 4 guards or to play 3 smaller guards because they couldn't keep up with the Mastodons. Mastodons were too quick for them. And so they had to change what they did against the Dons. Last year, we didn't see it as much. You know why? Because the game was officiated differently. There's no question that last year, part of it is because the Big Ten officials were rotating into the Horizon League. Part of it is just the officials themselves were calling games, in my mind, with a lot more physicality. They were letting players play. And, a small, quick lineup against a big, strong lineup, when they allow physicality, the advantage goes to the big, strong guys. The advantage for the smaller guys is they're quicker, and you have to grab them, bump them, reach out and hit them. You got to do things to foul them. And if you're calling the closer fouls, you're going to spend a lot of time at the free throw line. But in this case, college basketball has become more physical, and you've seen it in women's basketball, college basketball on the women's side. You've seen it on the men's side. And so you've got to adjust rosters, and you've got to get bigger players that are bigger and stronger, because you no longer can play the 3 or 4, 6'4" and under guys. The Dons were really good at that 3, 4 years ago. Man, they'd put a 6'4" guy at the 4 spot, a 6'3" guy, and a couple of 6'1" guards. And they had teams in shambles because they no longer could play their 4-man. Because you had to put guards out to match up against these guys. And the Dons were really effective. But now the game's officiated a little bit different, and you're allowing teams to be more physical. Now you've got a 6'8" guy that can bump you around, and it makes it harder for the 6'3" guy to get around him. And so part of it, I think, is the way the game's being officiated changes the way you have to construct a roster in college basketball. And so we'll see what happens with the portal. For Purdue Fort Wayne women, they're going to obviously need a number of new bodies coming in, because they've got a number of players that are graduating and moving on, but they've got a pretty good nucleus to work around, with center. They've got center taken care of. They've got a couple of really good guards that are going to be returning that played a lot of minutes. They've got a couple of guards that were gaining experience last year. So far, I haven't seen anybody in the portal, but that could change. But I think most everybody's coming back on the women's side. Great program. And if you want to develop and you want to grow and you want to get better, you've got a great coaching staff to do that. I mean, when you talk about Coach Krieger and you add him to a mix with all of his knowledge, player development skill, and then you have Coach Asher. You have Lauren Ross, the nation's top three-point shooter from a couple of years ago. And, of course, Maria Marchesano, who's just unbelievable as the head coach. So we'll see what happens with the portal. But I think, once again, regardless, I think Purdue-Fort Wayne will be in good shape. I'm just anxious to see it all come together here fairly soon. TinCaps home opener coming up on Tuesday. Hopefully everybody's got tickets. If you don't have tickets, plenty of ways to follow TinCaps baseball. MILB TV, MLB TV, Valley Sports app. All of those give you options to watch. Tuesday night and Thursday night this week will be on my TV locally. Linear broadcast of TinCaps baseball on my TV. Also, you've got every game is always on radio. 1380 The Fan and 100.9 FM. So TinCaps at home starting Tuesday, 6 straight days, plenty of promotions. It's a U.S. Foods Family Feast night to start things off on Tuesday. Hey, it's going to be a little bit cold. I'll just give you, we'll be honest. You all can read the forecast. It might or might not get to 50. And those kind of nights, you just got to wear a couple extra layers and be prepared. The players don't want to be out there either, but it's easier for you than it is for the players. So come on out and support the team. Get yourself a cup of coffee, enjoy some baseball. It's great to be outside in the fresh air, downtown. Beautiful ballpark. Come on out on Tuesday night, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday afternoon games. But, of course, TinCaps.com has all your information. That will be it for us. Got to wrap it up on this Sunday night. It's kind of nice being done with the show and still being sunny outside. Love that daylight savings time. Didn't like it when we first switched because I thought we switched too early. I don't think we should ever have times where at 8 o'clock in the morning, it's dark. It should never be dark earlier than or later than 7 o'clock. By 7 o'clock, we should see some daylight. If daylight savings time is going to take that away, then let's hold off. And I know it's not a decision that we make, I make. I don't know who even makes it. Who makes the decision what week we change our clocks? Does anybody know who makes that decision? Because sometimes it's a little too early. This year it was a little too early. It's probably set on some lunar clock or something. But anyway, be sure you subscribe, like, and share the channel. Always appreciate you. Have a great Sunday night, and we will talk to you again soon.